All right. It says we're live. So let's get it on the road. All right. Welcome live from the crossroads of America. A 1 hour, or 1 hour. Damn, that's the old days. I'm looking at the old sheet here. A talk show about guns, politics, or anything else that crosses my mind. Answer questions from the audience. Either put them in the chat or email me at rickslifeasiseeit@gmail.com or spottedrick@gmail.com. We are only on YouTube, and I'm using gun chambers from GunTube to do this. As of today, I mean, it's still open. Last time I checked, about a half hour ago. Today is Gun Channel's last day. So, if anybody wants to do anything real quick, they better get over there and do it before it shuts down. So, all right, let's see what we got in the room. The first person in here was actually doing double duty as Kingpin. Then Mystic Guns, Raphael, Jason Stewart, Southpaw RX, Sean Ponnery, Patrick, so far in the room. And introduce my guests real quick, or my panelists, is we got the one and only Patriot in the Dark. How you doing?
Good afternoon, everyone. Doing great. Thanks for having me, Rick.
Appreciate no problem. Then we got the one and only Blind Shooter. How you doing?
Terribly glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Rick.
No problem. Then the lovable Squibload.
Happy February, everybody.
All right. Then we got Kingpin. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Then we got New York Outcast. How you doing? He's muted up on us. Either he's having trouble, or I think he must be having trouble.
Yeah, he's having connection issues because his screen is black right now. If you can hear us, Rob, you probably have to drop out and come back in because your connection's messed up right now.
And we've got an old favorite who just jumped into the chat. The panelist is Clover Tech. How you doing?
What up, Mr. Rick?
Good to see you.
See you.
Yeah. Okay. As you can see, anybody got any topics before we go on to mine they want to talk about? No?
New York gun laws suck ass.
Well, yeah, we know that. Yeah, now you're going to have to go get a mental health check.
A mental health check from an approved physician. Not a licensed physician, approved.
Yes. And I bet you at your expense, not theirs.
Anybody want to go back and remember where all this came from? You know, everybody's screaming mental illness at the top of their lungs every time a gun went off. That's why.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Saving grace here is, and I've had some conversation today back and forth. Is, we've got some folks out there like Walk the Talk America that's working with Mental Health America. That's really changing the perception and everything with a lot of these mental health professionals. And so, that's a way to try to combat some of this. I understand it's got to be an improved, like you guys have said, an approved whatever we're talking about, mental health professional, I guess. I'm not up to speed on all the different types of mental health professionals, but, if we can change, modify, turn, coerce, align with whatever the mental health professional community, then that's one way that we can hopefully head these off. I mean, it's kind of hard to stave off this type of legislation and regulation if you've got politicians that are willing to do whatever. I mean, go against the will of the people, whatever they got to do to ram things down our throats. But, maybe we can co-opt those communities that are trying to use, right, to push their agenda. And if we've got those people in those professions and communities on our side, then that could be of great benefit where, their legislation and regulation really has no teeth at the end of the day.
Well, see, that's where it all depends. I mean, if you read the article, they're saying approved mental health physician, whereas opposed to a licensed, board certified mental health physician. So when they're saying approved, that's making people like myself think, okay, who's giving them the approval to do these checks on us when we go to buy a gun? The government. So the government's only going to approve the doctors that are on their side and are going to deny us.
Well, they're also going to have to do. You got to look at a broader scope, though. They're also going to have to be. It's very unlikely that the government is going to approve like non-sanctioned, low-end quack jobs, right? And so, if we, as the firearm community, through efforts like Wealth Talk America, making an effect, working with Mental Health America, can affect and change the minds and change the perception of the cream of the crop when it comes to mental health professionals, then the government will have no choice unless they're sending people to quack jobs, and then that's going to end up in all types of potential lawsuits and all types of other things that I don't think the government is prepared to lay down or to put their aspirations in the hands of incompetent individuals.
But the anti-gun community always blames the tool, never the criminal. And they want to call all of us criminals because we have the same tool that we use lawfully that the bad guys use unlawfully and will continue to use unlawfully. They don't care how many rules, laws, orders they break, whereas we do. And we pick the low-hanging fruit like the anti-gunners. We did the exact same thing the antis did. And we'll deflect it. We'll deflect it onto mental illness because they deflect it onto the weapon. They don't deflect it. They don't keep it where it belongs, and that is the responsibility of the criminal. Mm-hmm. And we did the exact same thing they did. We said, oh man, think quick. Oh, I know. We'll deflect it and blame mental illness. So in some ways, we're no better than them when we do crap like that.
I don't see it as a deflection. I see it as an honest truth. When you look at fire-related deaths, and you see that 2/3 are suicide, for example. And these are numbers that they beat us over the head with, right? We have to admit that if 2/3 are suicide, we do have, a majority of suicide. I'm not going to say all is brought on by some type of mental health issue, right? I don't want to say, you can't use the term crazy or whack job or that type of thing. I mean, we all go through mental issues, however small they may be, throughout our life. And for some, those issues are more, what is the word? I don't know. You get what I'm saying, though. Those issues are more exaggerated, maybe, right, than others. So, I don't know. I don't see it as a deflection. I see it as a way that we're like, okay, we've got an elephant in the room here, and they won't admit to that elephant in the room. They're not going to, because they want to take those, if they had a number that was 1/3 the number that they're talking about, then that might not, in their mind, carry enough weight, right? So they want to use that whole number. So one way that we can address it is to say, hey, look, we're aware of this elephant in the room. We're doing things to help with 2/3 of what is going on. I think the issues that you're speaking to more than anything, Squib, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is how they will lump those 2/3 that are seemingly unrelated when it comes down to brass tacks. They will lump those 2/3 into something as minuscule as like murders committed with long guns or murders committed with rifles, right? Which we know is a minuscule amount. And when that anti-gun element starts talking about that, they lump everything in with that one small little sliver of what's actually going on, which is very intellectually dishonest.
Well, I look at it like this. They think we're all criminals because we use the same tool as the criminal. So they're going to think we all have a mental illness because we have the same tool as the criminal, who we're saying is 100% of the time mentally ill. And look, if somebody needs help, they should get the help, whether it comes from friends, family, coworkers, or even from some sort of government thing. But I don't think that somebody who is a little bit depressed and maybe is on a little bit of medication needs to be on a list of mentally ill people that can't have a firearm. Or if somebody's just having a bad day, they're going to get labeled as mentally ill, and no, they're just having a bad day. But there are some people, I've heard this before, and I don't know enough about it. I know some things about it, I don't know enough about it, but from what I know, I could stand behind it unless some facts change. When the government decided to get rid of the institutions, to stop funding the institutions, and more or less just, kind of let some of the people out that maybe didn't need to be out, that's where we started running into problems. And the thing is, people who don't need to be institutionalized get lumped in with those sorts of people.
Yep.
And I would like to see the people that need the help, or the people that are dangerous to society, but they haven't committed a criminal act, but they're clinically, more than one doctor would say it. I don't know. I can't get into the specifics of how you would do it, but however they could get somebody the help and maybe take them off the streets if they needed it, but without making it something broad where it's like, well, if you want a gun, you must be crazy. Here's the cuffs, and that's where it can go. It's just way too broad.
Well, you're exactly right, Squib. Here's what happened long ago is our benevolent government, for whatever reason, decided that we're not going to spend any more money on these mental health institutions. Now, I'm lucky enough to live in a community that we actually have a state hospital, a state mental institution here. However good or crappy it might be, depending on who you're talking to, at least it's here. And then within an hour or two of where I'm at, there's some other privately ran institutions as well, which is great. But they receive, minuscule, shoestring budget type funding. So buildings are falling in. They can't really hire people, salary wise. The state hospital here, for example, pays peanuts compared to a lot of other jobs that people get. So they can't really get that cream of the crop I was talking about as far as mental health professionals to help people. Not that the people there are incompetent or don't love what they do or appreciate what they do. I'm not knocking those employees. I'm just saying if they had a larger budget, they could potentially do a lot more. So what they did, and again, Squib is right, is they said, okay, shut these down because we have prisons. So what we're going to do is we're going to let the prison system handle that, basically. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that prison is not the place for people with mental health issues to get help. I mean, first of all, you have to go to prison to get help. To prison, you have to be a criminal, right? To get help. That's just dumb. And so that's what they've done. So, I mean, we need to see, and I don't know if it's a solution for the private sector. I don't know if it's a solution to push that, government funding start being reinstated. I'm certainly fiscally responsible, and I'm not for just throwing tax dollars here, there, and yonder willy nilly, right? But there's got to be, I think, more availability of what is the word? Facilities, mental health
services,
facilities. And services. You're absolutely right, Squib. Services, right? Meaning that maybe there's a mental health professional on staff in every county that, and maybe they have an office. Maybe they have an office of 4 or 5 people in that county, and they can assess, right, certain situations. If the sheriff's department or local police departments or somebody are running into some kind of an issue, or they've got a complaint, then that particular mental health portion of the county on the local level, not put on us on high from the federal government, but instituted through the actual county, the government closest to the people, right, can then go out and assess that. But again, even with those services, I think that you need facilities. And I think in this country, because of what you're talking about, Squib, because they've done away with so many of they say asylums is what I've read, and a lot of the stuff I've read on this, that they shut down a lot of asylums.
Trying not to use that word, but there's lots of vacant asylums out there.
Yeah, but they've shut down so many of those, and those are kind of like long-term care and nursing home things in a way. There are people that need to, and we've got a lot of people with mental health issues, as a matter of fact, living in long care facilities and nursing homes because of this, not just prisons, because there's not an appropriate place for those people to go and get help and live the rest of their life comfortably and safely, or get help and be able to manage whatever mental health issue they've got. And I think that's a big deal when we're talking about mental health. We got to talk about being able to help people manage, right? Because this is something that, you know, you're going to have a bad day. You're going to have things that affect you in your life mentally. It's the same way as you get sick. I mean, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And so we've got to teach people. That's a bigger societal issue that I don't know that we want to get into because I've talked forever already. But that's a bigger societal issue where people. I don't know what is the word. How do I want to say this? Where people feel that abnormal is normal, and they're not willing to admit, whoa, wait, something's going on with me and I need help. And then even if that person is to the point, going back to the original statement of shutting down these facilities and everything else, even if the people are willing to admit that and go, whoa, wait, okay, I'm kind of feeling weird. I'm thinking weird here. I need some help, that there's not help available. And then so there's this cycle, right, that you get into with the mental health aspect of things.
I reckon.
Are you in here now, New York Outcast?
Yes, it finally let me in. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got something to say about this?
Yeah, as far as the mental health in New York, I'd just like to state that they already do a check when you fill out a form here for a firearm to see if you've been institutionalized against will or anything like that. And they also ask you if you've, been under counseling and things like that as well. So, and so in a way, to me, I just see this as more of an expense towards, the gun owner to have to pay to go get checked out by somebody. It seems like they're hitting it in two different ways, which would make it harder for people with, not a lot of money to obtain a firearm or want to take the risk. And also in my area in upstate New York, they've recently, in the last 2 years, closed down most of the facilities that deal with people with mental disabilities, and basically booted them out, most of them to the street. Assisted living programs, they call it this and that, but there's nonstop calls of these people in trouble and having issues. I've actually know a few people that worked for that facility that got moved and relocated to different housing areas. But basically, they booted them out to bring in people for drug rehabilitation because the state gets more money, more funding for that now than they do for the mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a big issue with our state.
That was the same when I was living up in Rhode Island, as I said many times before. To get my concealed carry up there, I had to sign a bunch of forms to allow them to check with every institution in the state of Rhode Island to make sure I hadn't been in one. So I mean, some states already do it. I mean, it's definitely an infringement. I mean, to me, I think it goes against HIPAA to start with. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, also, what he was saying is, like, I noticed, as you said, they closed down all these institutions. And I've said this before. I know it. I'm not making light of it, but as New York said, they let a lot of them out on the streets, right? And in today's society, right, they get together. Two sickies together don't make a welly.
Right.
Well, I want to just throw something in real quick. I'm just going to throw this in and tie it in with the last chat we had as far as being with your churches and your community. It's more of their responsibility. Yep. I feel it needs to go back to that versus any federal anything. Yep. A lot of the stuff now is tied in with the hospitals. Your hospitals, I know my local hospitals, they got whole floors dealing with emergency issues as far as mental, where they'll put you in there. You can, enter yourself, or somebody else can put you in, whatever the fancy medical words are for that.
Like a psych ward, basically.
Yeah, it is. but it goes wide, depending on your area. I mean, I'm close to an area where there is a lot of that,
Right.
be it tying it in with drugs or whatever, but that still goes back. There are the like, not to put out just a name with it, but like the Catholic Charities in my area, they've had to change some things, obviously, with how they run it or whatever, but they do take care of, they have homes that are supported by, the diocese or the church or whatever, this doesn't have to have a name in your area, but it does resort back to the community taking over and taking responsibility. Now, when you're in an urban area, yeah, a lot of people look the other way because they don't really care, but that still falls back on, what kind of person you are. I know I donate, whatever I can time, this goes back with that whole charity thing, but there's a lot that can be done. There are homes here in my area that are, taking over houses basically and redoing houses so that there are as close to personal apartments, that kind of thing, that deal with. I personally know about these because I have somebody in my family that has a lot of issues, and she has been in a few of the places like that, and I believe she's in one right now. But as far as resorting to external help, in the community, it all goes back to the community. If you got to resort to, the government's got to build a building and help people out, you've already failed. I mean, I know that's a touchy issue right now, especially since this has been going on since what? I mean, since the '60s, where people kind of push things off to other people and rather have the government do it. The mental health thing, I still think that obviously you need people that understand and are educated in that as far as assistance and stuff. But there are a lot of people in your community that should be stepping up, and if you have extra time, you can do that too. I know a lot of people don't like to, help out or whatever. They feel that, somebody else should do it, but I still think that that's a big portion of it. And if you have that, as far as the extreme things, there's an issue right now. You still do have that facilities, and most of them are tied in with actual medical hospitals or whatever. And they have, I mean, obviously there's different hospitals that deal better with it, and some that push it off to another place. So there are places right now, and I know a lot of it is tied with drug use and rehab and things like that. But there's other things with that. I mean, and even in my area, there's enormous, I don't know. People have resorted to using drugs and things like that. So I don't want to fall back on the drug thing and the mental health. But as far as, that help should come from the community. And I think that's a lot with that walk the talk or, hey, hold my gun, all those other projects like that. They are more, not grassroots or whatever, but more community based. Look out for your brother kind of thing. So. Anyway,
well, I think we've identified an issue here, and I don't think we've necessarily meant to do it when we start talking about substance abuse. In that, okay, I've heard whoever it was talk about how the facilities have graduated more to a substance abuse type thing rather than mental health. And so what happens is people have a mental health issue, and then either they can't afford to go somewhere, they don't know where to go, and they turn to the bottle, or they turn to the pot, or they turn to whatever, or they do have help and they go to their doctor and maybe they get some medication, but they get addicted to said medication, and then once they can no longer get a script for that medication, then they turn to the bottle or some other type of drugs, or getting pills on the street or whatever it might be. Or maybe they've lose their insurance and they're no longer able to afford it or whatever. So we've definitely got a substance issue problem. And what's happening, I think, is that you get people that turn to those sorts of things. And what happens, they go into these places and they get treated for the substance abuse issue. But that's a surface issue. That was a microcosm of whatever mental things they were dealing with. And so when you treat that and then you turn them loose, you haven't treated the root cause of the issue. And then it's a revolving door, or it's a situation where you turn them loose and they progressively get worse because that issue remains untreated. And I don't know. I think maybe that's because the whole mental health thing is such a complex and difficult thing to grasp. Just treating a substance abuse issue is much easier, and so that's why these institutions decide to go that route. I mean, that's something that it's easier to show a tangible number of, okay, we got them off this drug or whatever, as opposed to, we got to spend weeks or maybe months even trying to figure out what type of mental deficiencies, let's say, that this person is experiencing.
And that's why it goes back to the community. I think that's why it's always
no, without a doubt. I'm all for it
because there's places that, just like I said, I know there's halfway houses and there's homes in my area that I've dealt with just because I used to drop stuff off to them, because that's what you do. But where they actually have the time invested in people, where you do have homes that, I mean, obviously you're going to have good places and bad places, and I don't know. I still revert, most problems and solutions are in the community. And, obviously that goes down right to, obviously family eventually, but, it just depends on how close you want to look at it, and I know that there's people that don't have the family or, there's situations, but.
Yeah. Anyway, we go
Thanks a lot, Blind Shooter.
You're very welcome.
We're going from mental health and guns to how mental health institutions are run in the country. But that's okay. I mean, it is a topic that can go on for hours, and I don't think we're going to solve it here today.
Well,
but it's something that people need to take, what's the word? Take interest in it and make sure, that's been the problem. We just let it go by and not worry about it and try to keep it a secret, if you're hurting. But back to the gun thing, what Squib was saying, right? Yes, I mean, the gun community said, well, all these shootings are a mental health issue. Well, I think a majority of those shootings, when they investigated, those people did have some sort of issue that needed to be addressed. So you can't say that it was BS, we said.
I'm the one that brought that up, and I'll double down on it's BS. 348 people were killed in Baltimore last year. Not 1% of that was mentally ill. That was morally ill. There's a huge difference between being a scummy criminal and being mentally deficient.
Yes, but see, where this came from with the mainstream media and the politicians is not for. I'm not trying to put it down, the individual shootings like that. I'm talking about the mass shootings that they've had in the schools and in the Walmart and all, where multiple people were mowed down in one go.
Yeah, but they skipped the stories of the Saturday night in Oakland when 7 people were shot at a cookout.
Yeah, well, they do. They do.
Yeah, it's you got to separating, moral issues and mental issues. I mean, that's
I mean, it's a very complicated, thing to discuss.
See, I don't think it's complicated so much as a lot of people just don't want to recognize the issue. I mean, me personally, I think it's a combination of mental health and mommy and daddy dearest never bothered to whoop that kid's ass when they were young and acting out.
We're also talking about catching lightning bolts in a bottle. Vegas doesn't happen every day. That hardly ever happens in our lifetime. I mean, it's so rare that mass shootings like that happen. You know, we can't let Vegas determine if mental illness is going to be a part of me purchasing a gun.
No, I
Plus,
agree.
that guy
I
was mentally
think
ill, and I think it also fell back on if mommy bothered to whoop his ass when he started acting out as a kid. Maybe he wouldn't have done what he did.
yeah, the urban culture, in my opinion, is an issue of its own. Yeah, not to speak badly of anything or anybody, but when it comes to urban, you know, from a lot of the things I see, it's almost encouraged to be bad to gain respect, to have street credit. If you don't struggle, then you had it easy. It's like kids from good homes in nice areas near me go out of their way to try to come across as a gangster and screw up in school and things like that because that's what's idolized. And I think, when you have TV with the rappers and all this stuff, everything's pushed in a manner that makes most urban kids a target, in my opinion. Then they get targeted and feeds the system, and it turns out to be a long, continuous cycle with a couple generations that just, continuous trouble. I think that's kind of built up to be a problem, and that would be, where I think the area that Kingpin may have been touching on with that doesn't really get brought up. It's only the
Well, and the same thing along
mass
the line.
shootings and things. So
Just like Rob was just saying, the hip hop culture. I love rap music. I'm not down on rap music. I'm just saying, if you say anytime anybody's come out and said maybe we shouldn't, promote this, let's go kill our mothers and rape our sisters rap music, they get called racist or bigoted. We've got to be able to break through all that kind of stuff to get to the rationale of the conversation.
It all goes back to family, because I'm sure Martin Luther King's kids weren't doing that kind of stuff, because I don't believe as long as you have a family unit that's supposed to be, and it goes back to that moral thing, you're not going to have that. As I'm pretty sure he would have beat the crap out of his kids.
Well, that wasn't popular at that time.
It started.
Now it is in an urban culture. That's the sad part. On TV, everywhere you look, or things like that. That's what's every kid's walking out in the street, like doing their rapping and stuff. Like to somebody that's not local, you'd walk by thinking everybody was crazy. Yeah, it's just different. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it started back then, though. Once that family, nuclear family, however you want to say it, collapsed, that is a result. That's just like saying, let's fix this drug problem and not fix their issue. I'm not for any excuses, and I don't want things to sound like excuses. So,
well, that falls back in our lap too, because I say it all the time. The assault on the father was the most devastating thing that's happened in our country in any of our lifetimes. When we all sat back and let they remove the father from the household, we just watched it happen. Nobody's. Occasionally somebody would stand up and say, "Hey, what about dad?" or something like that. But we allowed the father figure to be removed and become almost obsolete. That is our fault for just letting it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd just say it seems to be a general line of values and disrespect through all cultures. It's respect of the ones that came before you. And some of the stuff I see today is just, in my opinion, degrading to, the earlier generations that fought for rights and equality.
And where did you learn all that stuff? You learned that from your fathers.
Oh.
Maybe, I don't know. It just seems right and wrong to me. I don't know. Don't feed into a stereotype to become a target or a victim and then, spend the rest of your life blaming everybody else about them.
Anybody who's ever gone through the family law system will tell you that they have destroyed the place of the father. They vilified the father. That the mother could have done everything wrong, and the father did more or less nothing other than say, "I've had enough." And Yeah, it's pretty bad in our society where we scream about people wanting equality at all levels, and we scream about tolerance, but but there are people that go against that equality and go against that tolerance because they just say, they just, what they do is they label somebody a certain way, or they penalize somebody for doing nothing. Or it is difficult to raise kids in this world. And Blind Tuner's talking about the ass whooping. I got the ass whooping when I was a kid. I needed that. That's what I listened to. Why do you guys think I'm so stubborn? Today, even if it's a state law that you can spank your child, try it and see what happens. You will get Child Protective Services called on you. And if you want to know what red flag laws are like, just have them come visit your house. You'll learn real fast. If you are divorced and you spank in your household and she doesn't, and she wants to bring it up in front of the judge, you might lose your kids over that. I'm not talking about putting your kids in a hospital or beating the living hell out of them. But and I'm old school, and I don't see a problem with it, even though I don't do it. But our society is kind of taking that away. It's just like the whole adversity thing. I've tried to give my kids some adversity. Probably not enough, but I've tried to give them some, because our school system, our family law system, and our society say, there, it's not your fault, it's somebody else's fault, we'll take care of it for you, and here's a reward for doing that. Or you're going to get the same thing as the guy who did nothing. Well, then why should I bust my butt? There's all kinds of problems with our society that we can address, that we can all say are contributing factors. But at the end of the day, there are lots of people that grow up in this adversity and they don't kill anyone. They don't break any laws knowingly. They grow up, they become a productive member of society, they make money, they pay taxes, they provide for their family, they do all kinds of things. So at the end of the day, despite whatever condition somebody has grown up in or has had to suffer through or whatever it is, whether you had an unfair life or you had everything handed to you, at the end of the day, it is individual responsibility despite the issues with our society.
Yep. Anyway, I got a question. Going to change the topic slightly, but staying on it a little bit. The red flag laws, right? Is anybody challenging? Everybody says they go against this amendment, that amendment, this amendment, but has anybody challenged them in court yet?
Working on it.
I haven't heard of a case yet.
There was just one that I just read something. I don't know what state it was, where the lady that pushed for the red flag law, she's actually getting in trouble now because she did it falsely or whatever. So she claimed somebody was doing something wrong, and they figured out that she was lying or something. I can find it here, maybe.
Yeah, now you're talking about charging somebody for calling, saying somebody needs their guns taken away. What I'm talking about is I haven't seen a court case yet where somebody who said this law is unconstitutional. I mean, looking at some of these laws in New York, well, most of these gun laws are in the country are unconstitutional. I know it costs money, but it seems like, it's unconstitutional, but it's not worth spending millions to beat it. So it becomes the norm in the country. Every state is doing it. What's there now? 20, 21 states now that have red flag laws? It's going to go across the country. I mean, it doesn't have to be federal because every state's going to have their own.
To my knowledge, in New York, from what I've researched time and time again, there still is what they consider to be due process, where they have to get it signed off by a judge before they can do the red flag. Now, whether you believe that or not, it's another story. But I think in my area, that's probably why people don't complain too much, because the people that do say something are always anti-gunners. Not that there aren't a lot of gun owners, but a lot of them are like scared to death to even bring up the topic anyway.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, like down in Florida, since they introduced it, was it last year or the year before? There's been something like 300 red flag orders issued on people.
red flag laws, I've said it a trillion times. The first paragraph of red flag law is packed full of due process and all kinds of constitutional protection. And then they put a comma down and say, except for in an emergency situation. So that's how they get around it. All they got to do is make it an emergency situation. And that's another way that they sold it. They sold the red flag law just like we were talking about earlier. They're selling mental health checks as a way to keep bad people from getting guns. And we're going to have due process, and you can write letters and get a lawyer and do all this. And then they put a comma down and say an exemption of extreme risks. And then in extreme risk, they're not going to wait 3 weeks to get a warrant and all that kind of stuff. They're going to come to your house at 5 o'clock in the morning.
And that's what it all boils down to. Like, a lot of people aren't bothering to read everything.
I mean, even the hardened criminal in a prison has rights to a certain degree on how he's treated. You know, so even in an extreme thing, I mean, these red flag laws, the police go to the judge, said this so and so, the judge issues the order, right? But I'm not. I mean, say they're doing it against me, I'm not there. I can understand coming to my house at 5 o'clock in the morning and say taking me to jail, you know, or put me in an institution for 72 hours. You know, I can understand that. But coming to take my guns without me being in front of that judge saying no, why, is wrong. I'm sorry, it is.
It's wrong.
I don't agree with them.
You know,
been known to be against red flag laws personally. I think, in most places there's already similar laws that are a little more done a little more justly. And I've heard rumor, now this is only rumor, but I've heard rumor that there's been close to 2,000 so far in New York. So, which in my opinion is quite a lot. So again, I'm not thrilled at all, as easy as it is for people to make accusations.
Well, I don't.
It always seems we have to prove our innocence with anything.
I mean, that's changed a lot too, and lately,
So I don't want to make light of a situation, right? But a couple of people have thrown out numbers. Okay, so I don't want us to fall into the same trap that we demonize the other side for, right? So and again, I'm not making light of the situation. I'm just bringing this to the forefront as something to think about. When you talk about 2,000 people in the state of freaking New York, what percentage is that? When you talk about 300 in the state of Florida, what percentage is that, right? It's going to be minuscule, absolutely non-relevant, minuscule in the sense of data, in the sense of numbers, right? And so that goes back to the same thing when we get beat over the head and we need these draconian gun control laws because less than 3% of mass murders are committed with a quote-unquote assault rifle, or rifle in general actually is what that percentage is. That's all rifles, right? The less than 3%. So we get beat over the head because of 3%, and then we complain like I did at the first. At least I complained that no, 2/3 are suicide, and then you start weeding that down, and what in the world are we doing? Basing and somebody else, a couple other people I think on the panel have mentioned this. What in the world are we doing? Proposing draconian laws off of these minuscule, random, they hardly ever happen as it pertains to the data. Now, that being said, that those 300 cases, those 2,000 cases, those are real people with real constitutional rights, and I totally get that. But I think that we have to be careful when we're parsing those numbers and not act like the other side, where there's this overwhelming number of bad things going on. And then when you talk about the 300 or the 2,000 that were filed, how many of those could have been legitimate as well? Because that's something that we also don't know. We're not able to actually parse that data and find out, okay, out of that 300, were 295 of them completely unwarranted and turned loose or thrown out. We just know the number that are filed.
Correct. I mean, maybe, as you said, 1 or 2 of them or 20 of them out of the 2,000 are legit. The person was a danger to himself or others.
Rick, Rick, do you know why they come and take your guns and not you?
Why?
Because the public will not get behind a law where they take you away for days or weeks and put you in a psych ward and do some evaluations on you and more or less remove you from your home. But they're okay with removing an inanimate object, and we've talked about it before. Okay, great, you took all the guns out of the house. That doesn't mean that they don't still have access to guns, or that their car isn't a weapon, or a baseball bat, or an axe, or a knife, or a rope, a cord. Just start naming off all these different things that you can turn into a weapon, or that you can acquire, whether it be through legal or illegal means, if they remove your firearms from your home. So people will get behind that law. But if the state come up with a law saying, we're going to take you, we're just going to come into your house at 5 in the morning, throw cuffs on you, might as well just put a bag over your head and toss you in an empty, in an unmarked white van too, and haul you away to the psych ward for 72 hours before we determine whether or not you're okay to go back home. People would be up in arms. It doesn't matter how you vote or anything. They would be up in arms over that. But guns, I don't have guns, so what do I care? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'll sign off on this. Yeah, I think it's a great law. It's a wonderful law. I feel safer already. And that's the thing.
Well,
or it's the same person who says, I have a gun, but I don't feel comfortable with other people having guns. And they would sign off on it too.
Well, two things that I'd say about that. First of all, is we already have the whole 72-hour psych evaluation type thing going on. We have for years and years and years, and people, for the most part, have not. They certainly haven't blown up like extreme risk protection orders and stuff as far as drawing a line and saying, no, we can't have this, right? People throwing a fit over it. But that's 72 hours, and it's more so really no rights are stripped other than you're kind of detained for 72 hours. It's more of an inconvenience than anything. Maybe necessary, maybe not, depending on the situation, of course. The second thing that I would address with that right there, well, first of all, on that part, totally agree that if you extended that to the legislation in a lot of these extreme risk protection orders, where you're talking about losing your firearms or whatever it might be for months or even years, right? If they were to come and take you away and lock you away for months or even years, not 72 hours, but months or even years, then yes, people would definitely be up in arms all over the place about that. Totally agree on that level. But the second thing is when we tend to, again, it's kind of like the numbers and parsing the data. We tend to hyper focus because why? We love firearms, we love guns, we love the Second Amendment, we love our freedom, whatever. We tend to hyper focus on guns and say, okay, well, this is about the guns and it's guns, and they take away the guns and they blah, 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 blah. If you read these extreme risk protection orders, there's much, much more restriction and stuff like that. It is pretty much done, and I get it, it's done for the most part by a judge who can be a good judge, a bad judge, a drunk judge. The judge is having a bad day, whatever. But there are all types of stipulations when it comes to these extreme risk protection orders, from guns to medications to, yes, knives in the house, anything deemed a weapon, to driving, to use of internet, to use of social media. It runs the gamut as far as what they can take away. It's not just the guns. So again, we get back into this issue of the 300 or the 2,000, and we don't know. It's really so new. We really don't know out of those. How many of those did they just restrict them from social media, or just restrict them from cell phone use, or just restrict them from something that's seemingly silly? I mean, we don't know, but that's still taken away. That's still taking away somebody's ability to freely use something that they should be able to use, right?
That's something that's, like, I talk about all the time, is the front load. Like I said, we're going to keep every politician and every newscaster out there says we're going to keep guns out of bad people's hands. That's what the red flag law means. And most people are like, oh, okay, I'm with that. And then you get into, like Clover was talking about, you get 3 or 4 paragraphs deep and you realize just how terrible these red flag laws are. I mean, it's not just about, it's basically doing what Squib said, but without putting you in a box. It's putting you in a box that you can walk around in, but it's an absolute violation of any kind of humanity.
I may be wrong on how I'd turn this, but I know I've heard, or at least I believe, we're supposed to be set up in a manner where, it is possible one or two bad people would slip through the cracks in order not to wrongly persecute or prosecute whatever a a legal person that was falsely accused. And it seems like these red flags are basically set up, is almost like the opposite in a sense where you could be a threat. So we're going to come violate your rights and harass you. And then you have to go through the expense. So to me, that's just, another reason why I think they're just bad to begin with. You might get one or two issues here or there where we may all agree, yeah, there was a problem there. But normally people in that situation are going to be a problem one way or another. So back to like friends and family and stuff, that's where it may fall on that.
There's a couple of states. I mean, Maine comes to mind when we talk about extreme risk protection orders. That is about as right as you could get one. Okay, and we're going off the premise that you could even do this to where it was completely constitutionally sound and everything else, and completely fair. Maine's pretty close, and there's several other states that have components of their ERPOs that are well done.
Indiana has one that's well done. They've had it since 2005.
Yeah, the problem is that the situation, you're dealing with people, and you're dealing with case by case basis, and you're dealing with things that are there's so many variables at play that it's extremely difficult to write legislation on that type of a level. It is. That's a natural hurdle that I don't know that anybody will ever come up. If we could all get together right now, we could all go through law school and constitutional law and everything else, knowing we're all, freedom loving, gun loving, God fearing people, whatever. And then everybody on this panel go do that, get all their education, sit down at a round table, and we put something together, and I guarantee you a significant portion of the populace is going to complain just like we're complaining now, because you're not going to be able to completely handle the issues you want to handle, plus allow for the protections under the Constitution. I just don't think it's possible.
Well, the biggest hurdle that you're going to come in is the fact that we're expecting them to be like morally writing these laws out, which, there may be some laws that these politicians and sit down with and crack out because they think it's going to make life better. But, the red flag law was not written, even not one letter of it was written to protect anybody. That was all about government overreach.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. I mean, all the ones I've seen, as I said, they come, take your guns, right? But they don't say, here's an appointment with this therapist tomorrow morning.
What's like the famous saying goes, criminals prefer unarmed citizens, dictators prefer an unarmed populace.
Yeah. I know. They don't help. I mean, I see, that's what gets me about it. I don't agree with them. But if they're going to do them, at least do them right. Like, give help.
And here's where I'll insert what we were talking about earlier with mental health. Here's where it's very important on a local level to affect all the change you can and have a fairly decent local government. And when I say that, I'm speaking mainly in the terms in this situation of your sheriffs and your city councils that appoint and hire your police chiefs and your police force. Because even, I have seen with all of these extreme risk protection orders, I have seen cases where some were warranted, some were not, in my opinion, but all of them were handled with the utmost respect and care when it comes to those law enforcement agencies. In other words, they didn't just kick down a door, and they didn't just go in and seize all this stuff. They would go in and say, hey, we've got this. You can't have possession of these. The judge is saying we remove them, and they allowed a family member to come over and pick them up, or something like that. So they're in a lot of these extreme risk protection orders, and that goes into a lot of what Patriot has been talking about, which ultimately 99.9% of the problems that we have in this country are societally based. And law enforcement, politicians, our doctors, our mental health professionals, all the way down, you name it, are all products of society. That's the bottom line. And so, until we can get to a point to where, and I think we're at a point that we're starting to turn a corner, and that's where I see a lot of hope in future generations and stuff like that. I think we're starting to turn a corner, and I think eventually we will see society turn the corner enough that in those roles that affect our lives so drastically, we will start seeing accurate representation of the people. Unfortunately, it's just a matter of holding on. I mean, getting that grip and fighting and holding on as long as we can till that happens.
We also doing this. G Webb's talked about the new media, and even if this was just us on a private conversation and no internet involved, keeping active, talking to people from Texas and Michigan and Rhode Island and Louisiana and all these other different places, and having these rational conversations with each other about the actual thing that's in front of us and how we're going to confront it the best. If we stop having these conversations or turn these conversations into the no, New York, you're wrong, and I'm right. New York's wrong, I'm right. Shut up, I don't want to hear from you. That's when we're going to fail.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And sort of like on the same sort of thing here is in my title to this week's show. State by state, these anti-gun laws are creeping in. You're seeing it every day. I mean, I know. I'm what's the word for? Is it pessimistic? Are we losing?
No.
Because it feels like it.
No,
I'm sure it's felt like it for people for a very long time. I've talked to people. They were alive in the 60s. They were alive with Gun Control Act of 1968. I've talked with people that were heavily involved in 86, with FOPOD and the Hughes Amendment. I've had conversations with those people, and to talk with them people, this is a revolving cycle, and it's just, if you're new to this fight, or, if you don't have the age and everything behind you, then yeah, I mean, it can seem like, it's a losing battle. But gains, when we look at wins and we look at gains, we get into an issue where everybody on this panel and probably out there in the chat and replay and everything else will agree. We've got and have had for a decade plus, had an issue with our mainstream media. The whatever it's supposed to be, the fifth branch of the government or whatever that's supposed to be, holding people accountable and telling it like it is and actually informing us of what's going on. That's playing favorites, that's got their own agendas, that's assisting with agendas, and they're not actually a part of the media and everything like they're supposed to be. And so when we have that going on, it's a situation to where we're not going to be told about wins. We're not going to be told about the little things, and so we've got to go look for them. Well, if we have to go look for them, they may not seem significant, because it's like, well, I had to go dig to find out that, my state attorney general took this to court and beat this thing or that, right? And it seems minuscule because in our minds, because again, the mainstream media is not covering it. Maybe mainstream pro gun activists and stuff are not talking about it or stuff like that. But they're wins nonetheless. And so I think we got to get away from categorizing our wins and losses as this was a big win or this was a big loss, and just it's a mark in a win column or a mark in the loss column. That's the way you do it, regardless. It holds no more weight than that. And I think if we do that and we go through and take, say, 2019 as a year, for example, and we mark that as a country, right? Let me caveat this by saying as a country. In some states, I get it. You guys get beat over the freaking head all the time. I understand it. So we've got to go United States of America. Let's take the accumulation of the country and look at it anyway. Then nationally, I think it's a wash. And if it's one way or the other, it's very, very, very slight. But for the most part, it pretty much stays a wash. And if you think about it, it has to pretty much stay a wash, right? Because look at the drama that's drummed up. Look at the money that is raised and thrown around and everything else because of this issue of quote unquote gun violence, right? If they solve this tomorrow, then they're throwing away millions and billions of dollars that they're able to raise and throw around and do this and do that, right? And money is power. Let's be honest about it. So at the end of the day, I don't know that it's a legitimate issue that people on the other side of the aisle, there's some rank and file people, sure, just followers, whatever, that yeah, I mean, they may legitimately want to end all of this and get rid of all the guns and everything else. I understand, but as far as those that are making money, getting money, throwing money around, I don't know if those people want it to completely go away.
Well, I mean, the spending bill that was just passed, a bipartisan spending bill that Donald Trump signed, and everybody knows I'm a fan of Trump, but you gotta call him out when he does something stupid.
Yep.
Had $25 million worth of research money for gun violence.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Sorry, Squippy, go ahead.
Well, Clover, I'd like to extrapolate a little bit on what you said there in the beginning. Okay, for those of you who are new to the whole Second Amendment thing, whether it's because you were too young and now you're of age, you can have a gun and you're interested, or you did have guns, or you knew about the Second Amendment, but it really wasn't an issue to you, and then suddenly Sandy Hook happened and you got involved. Okay, I want you to look at a black eye on the Second Amendment movement that was 10 years long, the 94 assault weapons ban. People look at that and they go, oh my goodness, that was terrible. For 10 years, you couldn't buy certain guns. Okay, let me put it into perspective for you. Yes, you could buy certain guns and you could buy certain magazines. There was so much pre-ban inventory out there that the stuff was available. But this is what happened because of it. Prior to it, there was only like 3 or 4 companies making AR-15s. They just weren't. It's not that you couldn't get them. You could buy AKs, ARs, AR-18s, whatever you want, all day long at the gun show. It just they weren't selling. People were just not as interested in them as you would think they are. But because they were banned, companies said, oh my goodness, that $400 gun just went to $1,200 overnight. Get some tooling. Let's start making these things. And before you know it, there's tons of companies out there making AR-15s. Back in the day, the only pistol caliber you could get an AR in was 9mm, and those were few and far between. It was 5.56, and you rarely ever see an AR-10. Those were from the 60s, and a few CAR 15s that were in 9mm, and that was it. Well, all these companies started coming out of the woodworks. They're making them in different barrel lengths, different twist rates. They're making all these different options you can get them, making them in all these different calibers, and now it's mainstream. People who never would have thought about buying an AR or an AK, or getting involved in the Second Amendment movement, joining a gun rights group, being involved at all, being vigilant, learning about what's going on, suddenly got interested. And when it was all said and done, when it was all over and it sunsetted, not only was the data there that the government collected, we didn't collect it, the government collected, saying that it was ineffective, it did nothing to deter crime, and that's one of our strongest arguments to prevent something like this from ever happening again, is you tried it and it didn't work, which that was something else we got out of it. But
yeah, mainstream media all over the front page.
What?
I said mainstream media didn't plaster that all over the front page.
It doesn't matter. The source.
The biggest thing with this, it doesn't matter what thing you're focused on, whatever topic it is, when you're standing right next to it and you're looking at it, that's all you're going to see. So if all you're doing is trying to protect this, you got to step away from it. Since we focus on the Second Amendment, that's what we see. The guy next door, he probably hasn't seen 2 articles about the Second Amendment. So when you stand next
Okay,
to
you're not listening to what I'm saying, so never mind.
This was from 10 minutes ago. Okay, so I was just trying to stick that in there. When you're focused on the original thing was Rick says it doesn't feel like, it feels like we're going backwards or something. I can't even remember what you said. Yeah, losing. When you're standing next to a topic, I'm just trying to throw this out there because I gotta get off here for a second. But if you're standing next to a topic, it's hard to see everything. You're looking at the topic. That's all you're going to see.
Well, I agree with Squibb, and to expand on what he was saying about the AWB in '94, I've got a more recent example, and a smaller piece of legislation, right? Which is basically the whole pistol brace thing. I mean, does anybody out there realize with pistol braces and having access to them, the invention of them, the whatever, the sidestep, what do you want to call it, and with the common use of them nowadays, I think pretty much everybody will agree that even though I'm not a big pistol brace fan, they certainly, if they're not in common use, they're really darn close at this point. Do we actually realize how close we are to potentially attacking the NFA from 1934 on that front? How close we actually might be, simply because somebody said, "Oh, well, I've got a way to fix this."
Good
Sorry,
point.
I jump in and I'm sure I'm the one that's going to got to be different, but overall, I don't think we're doing great. I mean, I've seen ups and downs, and yes, I'm coming from probably one of the down areas. I will admit that. And I haven't really followed this for a long time, maybe 10, 15, more so in depth recently. But to me, it just goes back. It's simple to me. I don't think they should be able to mess with my rights or tell me if it's okay or we're close to getting this. It shouldn't matter. If you're legal, you're legal. To me, I don't see why most gun control at all is a good thing, or if we're getting something, but we shouldn't have lost it, in my opinion.
No, we're not saying it's a good thing. What we're saying is, from a certain perspective, we've gotten things that we would have never had before if some of it hadn't existed and then gone away. It's gone away because it's
give you that in a sense that maybe it's helped for finance, technology, different firearms or things like that. But all in general, overall, I still think it was a bad thing to begin with. So just because we're getting a little back now in some places, and people aren't complaining much, whether it's to their knowledge or not, it's not up to that individual. It was our rights be given by God. It's not for you to tell me anything, as long as I'm not a straight up criminal. So I don't. To me, like I said, to me, I'm more basic. I just don't like it. Period. Though.
Well, nobody likes it. I think the point that they were trying to make is the positive steps we're making forward. Because I can tell from Maryland, last year we fought off 3, which seem to be home runs here. Now they're right back in session again because we didn't win in the election cycle, but a Democrat-run government turned down 3 anti-gun bills last session, and look at 17 states now have concealed carry. The fight's never going to stop. They're constitutional carry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what I meant. Thanks, Clover.
More have concealed. Just to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So to say, are we losing? Yeah, we lose a lot. How do we do no winning at all? No. And I understand where Rob's coming from. If you stole from me and I just happened to get my wallet back, I didn't win my wallet back. I got what was rightfully mine. But the situation that we're in now, especially us, because none of us on the panel were there when in 1930 or whatever it was when they banned automatic weapons and stuff like that. 1994, most of us were probably in like high school or early in college or something at the time, or maybe even middle school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you lost the NFA because you weren't there. I wasn't there. But getting those things back is a win.
We've inherited that stuff, but what I'm saying is from the standpoint of somebody who's new to the fight, who just looks at all these stuff and looks at the dates and looks at the names of the laws and looks at this and looks at that and doesn't realize that in 1994, nobody gave a damn about gun control. In 1986, nobody gave a damn about gun control. In 1934 and 1968, nobody gave. Today, people give a damn about gun control. And if we didn't have those unjust, unconstitutional laws that do nothing to make the public safe, we wouldn't have as many people right now fighting for it. And you could say, well, yeah, but we shouldn't have to fight for it to begin with. You're right, but it's there. It's there. But what if we had the numbers we've got today in 1968?
Yeah. And the communication methods, Squib. Don't forget that.
Yeah, that is the most important thing, because I say this all the time. Back in the 90s, you'd find out about something in your American Rifleman magazine 3 months after it happened. Well, a whole lot of good that does me. Now you can just go on the internet.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So, anyway, goddamn, this is a good conversation. We're still going. So, what I want to bring up is, it's going on the internet already in YouTube, is the NFL is allowing an anti-gun commercial but won't allow a pro-gun commercial. To me, that is so wrong that it's, I don't know. The only thing you can do is boycott watching the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so show of hands. How many people are watching Super Bowl tomorrow? My hand's down.
I'm not. My hand.
Well, you can go back to last season when they were doing the kneeling thing and the ratings went down. This season they stopped doing the kneeling thing and the ratings are going back up. So 90% of those people who burnt their jerseys and gave quarterback number 5 that they was on their favorite team the middle finger on YouTube are sitting on their fat couches watching it tomorrow. You know, if you're gonna boycott the NFL, be done with it. If not, don't even bring it up.
I was never with it personally. I mean, I'd love to see that type of money spent on schools or education or national debt. You know, I mean, it just blows my mind.
That's the difference too. The NFL is a company. Let them make all. I don't care if. I don't know what the quarterback's name is. John Elway. That's someone. I know he's old, but if he makes $1 trillion a game, that's awesome. Great.
Yeah,
if you want to spend your life savings on
shows
football helmets and jerseys and Doritos to watch the game, go for it. That's fine. You know, that
shows what people truly cherish. You know, they spend so much for this sport, but yet, you know, the school their kid goes to is falling apart, or you know, society's blowing up around them, but they'd rather spend $5,000 to go watch a game. Like me,
I haven't watched organized professional sports to speak of, like with a ball anyway. In quite some time, and I was a big fan and a sports guy a couple of decades or so ago, and through reading and learning and getting into history and seeing how society has evolved and all of that over the last couple of decades, first of all, it gets back into the society thing, and we're all products of society, and the vast majority of these players that are making these big money are worthless individuals, other than being able to throw a ball or kick a ball or catch a ball or run a ball or whatever. They just really are when you get down to it.
Degenerate, idolize like gods to some of these.
Well,
kids.
And that's yeah. But once you realize professional sports in particular, and you start comparing that to the gladiator days of Rome, you see that it's a distraction. And what I've got to wonder, and what I always wonder, because I've got friends that are super big into football, and they have no clue politically or Second Amendment or First Amendment or Fourth Amendment or anything what's going on. And I'm thinking, what if you instead of going to every single home game, and no telling what that cost. What if you missed one game and you donated that to a Second Amendment the organization, the Virginia Citizens Defense League, for example, where they're on the front lines? What if you, instead of watching that one football game on Sunday, what if you spent that time reading a book about American history or some type of political history or even world history when it comes to Rome and some of these other fallen empires and how it happened? What if you took that entertainment time and you curb that back? Just not completely. I'm not saying completely be devoid of all entertainment and joy in your life, because at the end of the day, I'm a very big proponent of everybody living their life and enjoying it. But curb it by maybe 10% and put that into an effort to better enlighten yourself about what's going on in the world around you.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, technology has made life easier for everybody, and this is a symptom or whatever the bad thing is that technology has brought us. Because if you look back to the factory, the car, when the car came on, people didn't get lazier; they got more active. When the mass production line factory came in the line, people got more productive. Now we're at a position where technology moves so far, so fast, in so little time, it's made us lazy.
Yes, technology also helps out with that learning, because yesterday I read Fahrenheit 541, the whole thing. So, Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
Just throw that in there for some entertainment.
Yeah. Anyway,
and if you haven't seen it.
Anyway, for entertainment, real quick, it's 4:15, and I haven't given my quiz answer for last week yet. So I'm going to do that real quick. And my question last week was real easy. It's from the movie The Outlaw Josie Wells. I wanted to know what he said, the famous saying, when he was facing those 4 Union troopers outside that building.
He said, "I'll be back."
No. He said,
"You're going to pull them pistols or whistle Dixie?"
That's it. Well, you're all going to pull those pistols or whistle Dixie was the answer. And I did have, how many? Let's have a look. Where is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 5 entries.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I'm going to hit my draw button now and see who we got.
Good luck.
All right. Tennessee Gun Guy is the winner. So there we go. Let me write that down if I don't forget. Tennessee Gun Guy. I got to get all
Congratulations.
I got to get all these out that for the last month who won it. I only send them out once a month now, because I even that up when I get my put my teeth back in. I do it once a month now when my check comes in. It makes life easier for me.
Rick, I got an idea for next week's quiz question.
Yeah.
Let's follow up on this. Name the 2 pistols that he drew and shot 3 of the 4 Union soldiers with. The models of the 2 pistols that Josie Wells used to shoot 3 of the 4 Union soldiers with.
Well, there you go. That's the question for next week. For the swag pack for next week. Yeah, the winner, by the way, Tennessee Gun Guy won a swag pack of a couple of patches and some stickers. So same for this week. I'll have to write that down before I forget it. The make and model of the pistols he used. I have to remember that. Okay. So that's the question for next week. So there we go. We got that done. And if everybody, before anybody says the cut of the week, it's not a cut. I want to say how I don't do it anymore, because I don't know why I don't do it. I guess because I don't do it this way anymore is because I don't drink, so I don't buy the stuff anymore. But the way I used to make hamburger patties for the grill, I used to use 80-20 or 85-15, because that way you still get enough fat for the juice, but it keeps the health freaks under control, because it's leaner stuff. But what I would do is, depends how much if you making a couple of pounds, you got a couple of pounds of ground beef, and you're going to make burgers. What I do is take sort of like half a red onion, chop it up into little pieces, put that into the throw that in the bowl with the ground beef. Put my salt and pepper or whatever other seasonings you want in there. Mix it all up. Then I would sort of like put a little, not a hole, but a sort of like a little bowl, sort of like hole in the middle of it. And back in those days, I used to drink Michelob. I would fill that hole up with Michelob. It maybe take a quarter to a half. Depends how big I made the whole beer. I didn't measure it. I just eyeballed it. Then you mix the beer into the burgers. Then get the meat, put it in a bowl, then smash them flat to like a sized burger and throw them on the grill. Though, man, that would make your tongue back your brains out. Just want to say. You ought to try mixing beer in with your burgers. That's my cut of the week. That's my thing. So use 80-20 or 80 or 85-15 ground beef. That way, I said it's enough fat in it for the juice to be there, and it's lean enough for the health freaks. So there we go. That's me done on my stuff for this week. So we got any other topics, guys? Talk to me.
So who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Hell, I don't know. What?
That was a joke. What were you going to say, Patriot?
I was just going to say, if anyone knows anybody in Louisiana, in the New Orleans area, that is disabled, get a hold of me.
Yes, for your project. Yes. You know, and I do have one political thing here to talk about. I mean, on the impeachment thing yesterday, right? The vote for witnesses, of course, they're not going to call any. That passed. It passed 51-49, right? It should have been, but Sue Collins from Maine and Mitt Romney from Utah voted against it. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, is that good or bad? I think it's bad because, I mean, Mitt Romney is never liked President Trump anyway. To me, he's another McCain. He's another John McCain. You know, Sue Rollins is very liberal. You know, now if the people in those states like those people, vote them in again. But if they don't, I mean, like Mitt Romney, he's still got another 4 years to go because in the Senate 6-year terms.
Yeah, but he could be primary to somebody who'd step up against him.
Yeah, so I'm just saying it just, or does that make me a Trump lover? Just because I.
Oh, I think it's fair to saying that Mitt Romney's a stinky face doesn't mean that you're necessarily a Trump lover. It just means that you have ears, eyes, and a brain that works. I voted for Barack Obama over Mitt Romney. That's how much of a dirtbag Mitt Romney is.
Yeah.
I think anybody that knows you, Rick, knows you're deplorable. So that's my opinion.
Yes. Oh, Utah House proposed an emergency recall bill to get Romney the hell out of there. That's what Sean Connery just said. You know, well, I hope they have. You know, I'm quite surprised they voted him in the first place. So, oh well. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about, or should we start winding it down?
What are you gonna have for dinner tonight? Where's your Pop-Tart video at, Rick?
I haven't bought any Pop-Tarts yet. How long have we got before you do your thing, Squib?
I'm going to talk to Travis about maybe giving it like another week or two. But the thing is, you actually don't need Pop-Tarts to do the video. You could literally just do a screenshot of, you know, whatever Pop-Tart flavor you want. Just Google it. Go to images. You know, put it on Microsoft Paint.
You know what?
And use that as your screenshot. Then use the voice recorder on your cell phone. Everybody's got that. If not, you can download a free app. Then you plug your phone into your computer, use the charging cord, and plug it into the computer. And then you download your voiceover, and you interlay it over top of your screenshot. And you go, well, I don't have any editing software. There's plenty you can download for free, or you could just use Movie Maker like me. It's free. And boom, there's your video. It doesn't cost you a penny.
You're right. I tell you what, you're absolutely right. You know, I'm thinking, well, I'll buy some Pop Tarts when I get paid. I didn't. I mean, it didn't
It's the first, Rick.
even cross my mind to go, get the images for some reason. It did. I didn't even think about it. So I'm glad you mentioned it. So I might do that this week. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So I'm not going to tell you what my favorite one is either until I do my video. So. All right. Anything else? What else did you want to know about me? Didn't I cover it all? Cut of the week, the quiz. I've done it all. So there we go.
Are we going to do one of those Rick's stories? You can give us a short story from somewhere out of the 23 countries you've lived in?
Oh, what? And something that I've done when I lived there? I can't remember what I did last week. What did I talk about last week?
You did. We just brought it up that you might start a little serious thing. I don't know.
No, did I? All right. Here's something. When I'm trying to think. I got married when I was 23. So I think I was around 20, 21 years old. And this was, I thought it was hilarious myself. There was 8 of us. And we rented a narrowboat on a canal. Have you seen pictures of those? That what they used to use back in the day. They used to be pulled by horses, but they used to transport goods along the canals. But now, they've turned them into recreational crafts now, and you can rent them. And so about 8 of us rented one on the Leeds to Liverpool Canal. And we went on it, and you wander through the countryside and the canals, and when you come to a lock, there's normally a pub, so you tie up and go have a few beers and come out and do your thing. Anyway, it has a famous lock system in a town called Shipley, and it's 6 locks in a row. So you're climbing up about 100 foot, or even more than that, because you go in one, fill that up, raise your boat up, then you fill up the next one, and you climb up, and you do the same thing coming down. Well, we came to this famous lock, and we pulled into the first one at the very bottom because we were going up, and I was drunk as a skunk. I really was. And it was and we took turns on, because you had to put these handles on these things to open up the wooden doors in the lock to let the water in. And you have ones on the bottom and ones on the top. You do the bottom ones first, and when the water gets near the top, you open the top ones. Well, I was so drunk that I opened the top one, and I flooded the narrowboat, sunk it inside the lock. And I had to get the fire department come to pump the lock out, for it would raise up a little bit before they could pull it out of there. So when that happened, we had to take it back, and we lost our deposit that we had to put down on that thing.
How deep are one of those locks? Like when all the water was out, was like the boat sitting on like dry ground? Could you get out and walk?
Yeah. Most of the Leeds to Liverpool Canal, the lock was on maybe 6-7 feet deep at the most.
Yeah, see, I've never seen one except for on television, so I don't know what they're really all about. I mean, I know what they are. I just never experienced one in person.
Yeah, they're not very deep. I said they're 6-7 feet, if that.
I think that's pretty funny, man.
One time I was on. I'm trying to think where I was. I've done it a couple times. This time we had a boat, a small cruiser type thing, and we moored up somewhere, and it was more near. I'm trying to think where it was. It was on a river this time. No, it was a lock, but it was a lock. That's right. And during the night, somebody had opened the lock gates, and it was a stretch of maybe 2 miles, and over the course of the 8 or 10 hours at night, it emptied the lock. The section, that 1 2 mile section was empty, and I said our boat was laying sideways because there was no water in there to keep it afloat. And I said it was maybe, it was about 6 or 7 feet deep. The lock was. So I mean, what happened was, of course, somebody found out, and then they went down to open the lock back up to bring the water back in. For all the boats to float again. So yeah, it can happen. So, that's one of my young stories from living in England.
Who were you with, Roy?
What? Well,
when you were on that trip?
There was 4 guys and 4 girls.
Uh-huh.
It was having a good time. Yeah. I mean, it was a wild time. I mean, people don't believe it, but England does get, in the summertime, doesn't rain all the time. I know, I remember correctly, it was quite warm because one of the girls went topless, laying on top of the narrowboat.
Can you still remember the girl's name that you were with?
No, I can't. I don't remember her name. I really don't. She was a blonde. I remember that much. That's about it. Which is strange because I like redheads myself. I like redheads. I'm partial to a girl with red hair. And, I don't care if it's real or dyed. I just love red. It just does something.
Did you date this girl for a period of time, or was this just a mutual gathering?
I dated her for maybe 6 months. I can't remember how it ended. She more likely dumped me. I can't remember, to be honest with you. But during that time, it was fun.
Did you sink any more boats when you were together with her?
No.
Was it a courage? Did she feel like she was going to die every other week? All right.
No. That was just one of my crazy stories when I was growing up. So.
That's a good one. I don't think a lot of us have sunk too many boats in a lock. No, I haven't. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Are fireworks legal in England?
Not many. They used to be, but no. As the years went by, no, they're not. You can buy what they call sprinklers, and you can buy sort of like a Roman candle type thing. That's about it. And you can buy a few rockets, and that's about it. There's only about 2 or 3 different types you can buy. The rest of them, all other kinds of fireworks are illegal. They have fireworks shows. I mean, a lot of the big fireworks shows are done on November the 5th. Guy Fawkes Night. That's when a lot of firework displays are done. And, so. Everybody knows about Guy Fawkes, right? He was the guy that tried to blow up Parliament.
It's the guy with like the white mask or whatever. All the memes about him now. He's got like the white mask on.
Yeah. When I was a kid, what you used to do was you would make a scarecrow, and you would go down. I mean, back in those days, I used to go on buses as a kid by myself and stuff. You go into town and sit out front of a store with your scarecrow on the ground, and you would say, when people walking by, you would say, "A penny for the guy," and people would toss your money. That's how you used to buy your fireworks. Then in the evening, when you set your bonfire off, you sit the scarecrow on it and set him alight and let the fireworks off and all that. Why they celebrate somebody who tried to blow up Parliament, I ain't figured that one out. what they do. That's what I did as a kid. I used to ride double-decker buses by myself when I was a young kid and stuff.
Is
Can you
Big Ben?
imagine seeing that nowadays with a kid walking around with a scarecrow he planned on lighting up with fireworks?
Yeah.
Imagine.
I don't know. I don't know if anybody still does it. But that's what it was like when I lived in England.
Is Big Ben like cool to look at? Because when you see it on TV and they show pictures of it on TV, it looks like it's a really big, cool building. And is it really as cool, or is it kind of dumb?
Actually, Big Ben is actually everybody calls big because what it shows on TV is the big tower with the clock, right? But Big Ben there, it is enormous, and I think it's only stopped about twice in its life. It's an impressive building. That's where Parliament is, where Big Ben is. It's in the same building as the British Parliament sits. It is impressive to look at.
Have you ever been a stone's throw from the River Thames?
Oh yeah. I've even been boating on the River Thames. Oh yeah, been fishing in the River Thames. Because you can go further. I used to live not far from it, actually. You could go. You could see River Thames is near Windsor Castle. So if you went there, you could be it. Because it all ran through the countryside until it got. Then when it got into London, you can walk along the sides of the River Thames, and stuff. But I didn't think much of it because I guess it was. I was there. You know what I'm saying? So.
What road system would you say is safer? Would you say our highway system, transportation system, safer than over there, or vice versa?
Their public transportation over in England is fantastic compared to here. Because they have, especially around. They have a bus system. It's not as good as it used to be because people don't use it as much. But they have a bus system that goes through the country. Trains. London has the underground, like New York has the subway. And
safety, like in cars, where would you be more likely to get in an accident? Do you think over that way or this way?
It's safer over there, i.e., for the way that it takes to get your license.
Okay. I'm just curious because I've seen a lot of those videos online with the car accidents and drivers road rage, and it seems like a lot of them come from that way.
Now,
it almost seems scary to drive a car over there because everybody just stops and takes a left here, no blinkers. No. It's like you're playing Russian roulette, just trying to get to work over there. If you believe what I've seen.
Well, I said not when I lived there. It was very good, and when I went last time I was there was about 7 years ago when my father died, and I jumped in the car, and of course you're driving on the opposite side of the road, and that's how I learned to drive in England. So as soon as I got in the car and started driving, it came back to me naturally. I had no trouble on what side of the road I was on, which way I looked. The only thing that took me a while to get back used to was how narrow the roads are, especially if you're going down. A lot of these roads are just wide enough for two cars, just wide enough. And if you're over too far, your wing mirrors are clipped. I'm telling you, that's how. Then on some of these roads, they allow you to park on one side. So, there might be a stretch of 500 or 600 yards where only one car can go through at a time. It is strange, but hey, I was used to it. There wasn't that many accidents when I was living there as a kid, because to get your license was extremely difficult in England. You got your permit, or as in England they called it your learner's permit, learner's license, you could get it when you were 17, but you couldn't take your test until you were 18 years old. And the test lasted a minimum of 30 minutes, but they normally went 45. I mean, you had to do a hill start. Also, I don't know what it's like now, but I can only go back when I was a kid, when I was 18, is if you drove, they didn't have many automatics there. So normally everybody drove stick shift. But over there, if you took your test in an automatic, that's all you were allowed to drive. If you took it in a standard, you could drive an automatic. So, but when you do your test, when you do your driving test over there, you had to do, they would pull you somewhere where you've done a hill start. They come to a stop on a hill using your handbrake, your emergency brake, as they call it over here, and your clutch. And they would, you come to a stop, then they start, and you would have to put your foot on the gas a little bit, let the clutch up, and let the emergency brake down all at the same time. The car take off smoothly. If you couldn't do it, automatic failure. And the next thing was reverse. You had to reverse around the corner, reverse all the way around the corner, not going further than 15 inches away from the curb all the way around the corner. You couldn't do that. That was an instant fail. And the other one,
those two things alone would cancel out most American drivers.
Yeah, and the other one was the infamous 3-point turn. I mean, they didn't pick they picked a road that was narrow, and you had to turn the car completely around in 3 moves and you weren't allowed to touch the curb on either side of the road. If you did, automatic failure. So it was, I mean, be honest with you, I failed the first time, because what did I do? On the hill start, it rolled back just a fraction, but it was enough for the examiner sitting next to me to feel it, and he failed me right then and there. We failed. I tell you what, we didn't even finish the test. He said, head back. We're heading back to the, what you call it now? He said, because that's an automatic failure.
I know a guy who failed his driving test before he even started the car. Well, technically, immediately after he started the car. He didn't put his seatbelt on, and he started the car, and the driver's ed instructor reached over, turned the key off, and said, "You failed."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Also, it was an automatic failure, too. Yeah, as you said, I've known people to fail before they even took off. Is because once you got in the car, right? Back in those days, it wasn't law to wear your seatbelt, but I wore mine anyway because it was it was going to be made law, and there was commercials on the TV and everything really pushing people to wear their seatbelts, but you didn't have to when I took my test. But when you're taking your test and you get in the car, the first thing you have to do is you look around to make sure everything's clear. You move, you check also what they wanted to see was to move your head to look in the mirror. If you had the mirror adjusted where all you got to do is move your eyes, that's not good enough for the instructor. He actually wants to see your head move as you're looking in the mirror. So you adjust the mirror just enough for it's off, for you have to move your head slightly to look through the mirror. If you don't do that, he fails you. It's it was tough. I don't know what it's like now, but that's what it was like when I learned to drive. So there, as going back to, people knew how to drive over there. The worst country I've ever driven in is Italy.
I was just going to ask you that because I seen that documentary about the driving, the Italian job.
Italy is absolutely terrifying.
Traffic in Naples is unreal.
I mean, you come to what they call a traffic light in Italy. Green is go, yellow is go, red is go. It's a free for all. It really is. It's terrified the shit out of me when I went down. I had to go to Italy once. I only went there once driving, and that was because back in the day, my oldest son, played baseball for a German team, a German youth team. They were the Bavarian champions. They were only allowed to have two Americans on a team. My son was a good player back in the day, and they chose him to play on their team. Anyway, we had to go to Italy because once they won the Bavarian championship, they entered some other championship, and it was down in Italy. That's why I was down there. So.
Pretty bad. At least they had signals, I guess. And
Oh, yeah.
I had to work in Cheyenne, Wyoming for a while. When I was there were some neighborhoods. I was shocked. I was like, man, I always get the right of way, and was, kind of feeling like it was my lucky day. And I'm driving back through on my way back through the end of the day, and I realized there's no stop signs in some of these neighborhoods. Cars would see each other, and one of them would just hit the gas. Basically, it kind of made me a bit nervous, because everybody wanted to go first. But I guess apparently the locals said there was no funding for stop signs, so it's literally a free for all. That's pretty scary right here in the U.S. So.
I tell you what I liked in England, and I think they would work over here, is roundabouts. Because when you came to a roundabout, let's say I'm trying to think, I can remember now I was on the other side of the road. So when you came to one, you always gave way to the oncoming traffic, or basically you gave way to the person that was already on the roundabout.
Yeah, we got tons of those around here.
Yeah, they just added like 2 or 3 in my area.
I think they're great, if people use them right, but a lot of people don't know how to use them right, But so they have a lot of them in Maryland, roundabouts,
Oh yeah, they're everywhere.
Oh yeah, I remember once. In some towns they had them where normally a roundabout is it's curved, it's got dirt in the middle, and they got trees and stuff growing in it. It's a fair size, but it's got to the point in some towns where they just paint them a white circle in the middle of the road, and that's where accidents happen. It's because people don't follow it the correct way; they just drive straight across it, and that's where the accidents happen.
We have one kind of near me in a sense, and they had a big curb up with grass, kind of a decorative thing and a bench. But I believe three or 4 people blew right through it, dead center, and they got tired of fixing it. So now it's just kind of a curb thing with a hump, and that's it. So
yeah,
apparently, truck drivers have had some issues, and it is fairly tight. But again, there's always that idiot that wants to fly down 30-mile-an-hour street doing 70 and doesn't see it. So,
and also the vehicles in England were made for the roads. You know what I'm saying? They weren't extra wide or extra long or anything. Like even
that's a tractor trailer.
Tractor trailers, most of them are not like big tractor trailers here that have the sleeper in the back and all that kind of stuff. Because you can get the most anywhere in England in a day.
What are they called there?
Lorries.
Lorries. Okay.
Yeah, trucks are called lorries. Those big things. Yeah, that's what they're called, lorries. So. Oh yeah, Patrick. I've watched Lampoon's European Vacation. Yeah, it's hilarious, But all right, guys, it's I'm getting hungry. The cats are getting hungry. It's almost their feeding time. They're starting to circle. They're down here by my feet, and they're rubbing up against my legs. Pretty soon they'll be scratching them because they're getting hungry. So I am going to say I'm going to finish it off. Let's do our closing stuff. Patriot, you got any closing stuff you want to do? Shout outs or anything?
I just appreciate you always doing this. If anybody wants to check out the thing about the Louisiana, New Orleans, if you could pass it on or let somebody know, I would appreciate it. But thanks, Rick.
Yeah. Squib, got anything? Any closeout shout outs?
And I guess now that the show's over, I'm going to take a little break from work and have myself a Pop-Tart. And then later I've got some sandwiches that have got some mayo on them for lunch. So.
Yeah. All right. Oh, yeah. Anybody's interested, I am having burgers tonight. Throwing them on the grill. No beer in them, of course. So. All right. Kingpin. Any shout outs or anything?
Yeah, shout out to you, Rick, for another great show, and Clover in New York for stopping by. Fantastic conversation. So just real glad to be a part of it. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. Also, as I said at the beginning of the show, this is the last day of gun channels. To me, I thought it was okay. I mean, when I first joined, because I met all you guys on there, I thought it was a great place to be. But things change in life. Change is the only constant in life is change. So anyway, New York Outcast. Any shout outs or anything?
No, just thanks for having me. It's been a good chat. Everybody be safe and enjoy the weekend.
All right. Clover, anything?
No, sir. Always a pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
No problem. I'm glad you had the chance to stop by. We don't see you that often because I know you're a busy man now. So. All right. So everybody, I'll be back on Wednesday with Shooting with Disabilities at 7 p.m. Eastern. And yeah. And then of course I'll be back here next Saturday with another show. So until then, I want to say goodbye, good night, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be. And thanks for stopping by. I really do appreciate it, everybody. All right, let me hit the end stream button.